now call on Brother Grant to give us his talk. Russia threatens, Europe trembles. I think there's another reason why Europe trembles too. I'm sure you're going to mention Brexit. The fear with Brexit is it's going to bankrupt Europe. They need British money, but they didn't get it from me. Thank you, Grant.
Good evening, brethren and sisters and young people. It's a real thrill to be here again, to come together around Yahweh's Word as we do. It really is very, very wonderful to be with you again. But remember those words that we've just read in Matthew chapter 24. Look at what they say to us, that we should watch therefore, for you know not the hour your Lord doth come. Yes, we know the general signs, brethren and sisters, but we don't know the precise time. So we need to be watching, brethren and sisters, and that's the importance of these nights. But know this, he goes on to say, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would have not suffered his house to be broken up. And then he adds some very interesting words. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. And then he states this. Who then is faithful and a wise servant, whom the Lord hath made ruler over his household, and give them meat in due season? Now that's what we must be, brethren and sisters. We must be faithful and wise servants. Now that's picked up by the Lord. He gives the Olivet prophecy in Matthew chapter 24, but in chapter 25, and we're not going to turn to it because we really haven't got time, but in Matthew chapter 25, these verses show to us, he picks up those key words. Be faithful, be wise, and be servants. He shows, first of all, in the 10 virgins to be wise, astute, watching the signs of the times. And then faithfully employ our talents, brethren and sisters, in encouraging each other and being servants one to another. We'll come back to this a little later on. But first of all, we know, don't we, that very shortly, very soon, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. There's been no shadow of a doubt about that. Because as we well know, the great God of heaven is in control of the world affairs. He changed the times and seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. There's God in control. And He is in control of the world affairs. Again in Daniel chapter 4, verse 17 it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers, and he's talking about the angels, to the intent that the living, that's us, may know that the Most High God ruleth in the kingdoms of men, and giveth it to whomsoever He will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. And so there is our great hope. Christ is shortly to return, and we're going to, God willing, be ruling with Him on this earth. Now let's go back a little. We're going back to about 1990. About the time when the Iron Curtain was in vogue. And there it was, as we can see. And of course, the Iron Curtain fell, and with the Iron Curtain falling, Russia was pushed back into those positions there. But it's not going to remain that way. It's going to change. You see, we know that. We know this so well from Daniel's image. Yes, that image describes world history down through time, doesn't it? It shows to us what has happened, and so we know this is absolutely certain, it's absolutely sure. It has happened, brethren and sisters. Over the thousands of years of man's occupation from the time of Babylon, right through to now, it has been fulfilled. But the prophecy goes on. It also speaks of one confederacy in our day. One confederacy in our day. So that we're going to have the territory of the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, the Grecian, the Roman, and the European united together. So what we're expecting is that, isn't it? We're expecting those territories to be united together from Scripture, from Daniel 2, and to be more precise, from Ezekiel chapter 38, which gives to us more details. The critical question for us at this stage, who leads this confederacy? Well, we know from Ezekiel chapter 38, we could go into it in great detail. We would do so if we're doing election, that it's going to be Russia. Russia. Very briefly, of course, in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 2, it tells us, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, of the land of Germany, Central Europe, the prince of Rosh, Meshech and Tubal, as the Hebrews shows us. But what does that word Gog mean? It means the one at the top, the supreme leader, the emperor. Who is it? Well, it's the one that is at the top, so to speak, in that image empire. We don't know definitively, but probably the smiley face we've got before us now. Russia, led by Putin. So what do we see? Daniel chapter 2 shows to us that Europe, along with all those other confederacies, but particularly Europe, which is what we want to consider tonight, is going to come under Russian control. Russia is going to control the European area, described by those 10 toes territory and the 2 iron legs. Russia is going to control that area. The iron and the clay will form together and Europe will come under Russian control. And so we're going to see a change. Yes, he was drawn back for a time, but he will come forth again, and he will come, of course, into the territory of Europe. We want to follow that and trace that tonight as our single main idea that we want to follow. We want to look at Russia's plans for Europe and how they are beginning to develop that, and how I believe in the very, very near future that could well come under Russian control, all of it, except for Britain, of course. Russia is rehearsing for a global war, says the ABC. Look at the date, only a few months ago, and giving early warnings to the West. It had manoeuvres up in the Russian area to the north, 300,000 Russian troops, over 1,000 aircraft. The British said that was at least twice, nearly 3 times their full armed force. Russia did that in one manoeuvre. And they were only using 1/3 of their standing army and 1/9 of their total army. You think of it. Staggering. Well, what we're going to look at tonight is we're going to go through, first of all, the Baltic states very briefly, Poland, Sweden. We're going to see how Russia, bit by bit, has been terrorising Europe and developing forces on the borders of Europe, so that I believe they wish Europe to capitulate, give up, not fight, just change sides. So if we go back to 2016, Russia terrorised, and we're going to look at that in a minute, the area of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. You know, they used to control those areas. They were once under the Iron Curtain. But when they withdrew, Russia was bankrupt. 1990, the oil price was about $12 a barrel. Russia was bankrupt. So they invited the Russians back to Russia. Not in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They didn't want to go home. If they went back to Russia, it would have been shortage of food, queuing up for just the morsel. So a quarter of their population, 27% of their population there, 6% are Russians. And Russia has approached them already and said, anybody from the years of 18 to I think it's about 34, 35, they said, we want you to understand you're already in the Russian army. You speak our language, you're already part of the Russian army, you're insurrectionists, and we'll pay you later when we take over. So here we can see today what the situation is. Russia has moved 110,000 troops along the borders of that area there to intimidate this area here. So, invasion fears. Back in 2006, those troops have not gone home. They're still there. At that time, the NATO leader, the head of the armed forces in Europe, said that that whole area would only take 36 hours to 60 hours to fall. Brother only a few nights ago spoke to me. He said, we went for a cruise up into this area here, landed in these areas. He said everybody was terrified of Russia. He said that was the common figure. They're all afraid right now. He went up there only a couple of months ago. Right now. And so the leader of Russia, the leader of the military force, NATO, said that whole area would fall in 36 to 60 hours. So, as a consequence to that, this area has produced a survival manual for their people. There it is. There's the front cover in English. Lithuanian Survival Guide. 98 pages, what to do when Russia takes over. Said, go out into your garden, dig a hole, make a little room, fill it with at least a year, maybe 2 years supply of food. If you need medicine, certainly 2 years, because you won't get it when Russia takes over. So they begged for help from the Western world. Kindly Britain sent in a significant number, 300 troops, along with, 120 troops, probably another 300, probably anything in the area of about 500 troops. Nothing. Insignificant figure. So here we are. Russia's growing threat to Europe. Let's take the first area. Oops, sorry, I pressed. Here we are. Pressed it twice. Alright, so Russia's growing threat, first of all, in the area of Lithuania. Next, now 2 years ago, 2017, Russia did a manoeuvre. Came in through Belarus, here it is, and sent in a practice manoeuvre. They said we're sending 13,000 troops in. The Economist sent over observers, watched the trains going past with the soldiers on board and counted them, and said at least 100,000, we think 130,000 troops. Then Russia said, oh well, it's only a manoeuvre, we'll take them home. The Economist again observed them going back. But as they went back, the trains went back, they came back with other soldiers. They just gave a change, gave a holiday for those who'd done the manoeuvre, and brought in others. So the Economist says, at least 100,000 troops are there now. Now. Along with that, in this area here, Belarus, which is Russian controlled, sometimes they call it Little Russia, when Russia's Iron Curtain came down, they continued to maintain that area. It's got significant ports. And into that area, Russia has moved at least 70 naval ships, vessel ships, into that area. Some have gone home, but the bulk has stayed there. The bulk of that is there, ready for manoeuvres, for attack. And so, the fear is that this attack could easily take Poland. Remember where it was? Maybe we'll come back. There it is. And so, the leader of Poland has said, Russia is a threat, not just to us, to all of Europe. All of Europe. NATO learned this thing. For all of Europe. So, the Americans sent in troops again. Britain last time, this time America. Of course there'll be a whole lot more, won't there? Here we are. 1,100 troops in. Significant number? Peanuts compared with what Russia's got there. Absolutely insignificant when you think about it. 110 soldiers. What for? To deter what is possibly a Russian aggression. Just to say, Russia, don't attack because America's in there. Outnumbered, yes, 100 to 1. But yeah, we're here. So the situation is now, 2017. Those troops are now in Belarus. In fact, there's a lot of talk going on between the leader of Belarus and Russia at the moment. There's some feeling that Belarus will come under Russian control too in the very near future. Well, let's come on to this year. 2018, there's that manoeuvre I told you about before. Russia on the warpath, says the papers. For World War III, a London paper has 300,000 soldiers march. Incredible. 300 soldiers up in this area, up here. And remember that's near the North Pole, so that comes closer together, close to Norway. We'll see about that in a second. So they were up here in this area, which is only a very short distance, because of the shape of the earth, from Norway. Russian build-up worries the Norwegians before big NATO military exercise. So here we are, there's where Russia is manoeuvring. It's moving at that point. And the consequence of that was that NATO responded. NATO was worried by what was going on, and it rushed troops up into this area. There was manoeuvres, Norwegian battleships were brought up around on the coast up here, and then Russia acted. Here's the first thing it did. GPS signals jammed. Norway and Finland warned their pilots, be careful. Here's one of the ships that collided with another. Norwegian frigate suffers a naval failure, leading to a collision with a tanker. Russia's taking control of digital affairs of this earth. And so, here we can see Russia's growing threat to Northern Europe. Sweden was worried about it. Look where Sweden is. They were approaching Norway, but Sweden was afraid that this might happen. And so they called up of their own soldiers, all their army, and then out of jobs, 22,000 Swedish volunteer soldiers were called up. They were preparing for the worst. They were worried about war. They were panicking over what they could see. Britain was worried too. It became headlines in Britain, World War III on the way. UK to send commanders to Norway to curb the Russian activity in the Arctic. So they sent 800 soldiers up there, cross land into that area as quickly as they could. Then NATO sent up its troops. Out of the NATO army, the standing army, which is supposed to be about 53,000, yes, it's much bigger than that, but standing army, according to Wikipedia, 50,000 was sent. In this article it said 40, but later on other articles said 50,000 was sent in that area to defend Norway. So here we can see the last area on that side for the moment. Threatening up into that area, threatening Sweden, but particularly Norway. We'll see why in a minute. So things are moving dramatically, brethren and sisters. Now I want to come aside from Europe for a minute. Iran threatened to close the Persian Gulf. Remember, America said we're going to boycott Iran because Iran is aiming to build atom bombs to destroy Israel. And they said if they don't stop by November the 4th, we will boycott them. And we'll put pressure on any other country who buys from them. And Iran said, we'll close the Persian Gulf. We'll close the Persian Gulf. We'll stop oil supplies from the Persian Gulf, and a large quantity goes to Europe. This was a threat. Exploited again. I don't know why I got to then. Exploited by Russia. We won't go into it in any detail, but Brother Thomas picks this point up and bases it on Isaiah chapter 18, where he speaks of the fact that this verse, he says, one of the worst translated anywhere in Isaiah, but he says it describes a naval presence from Tarshish in the area of the Persian Gulf. And indeed, into that area has moved at the moment British and American ships to maintain supply of oil for various countries. Our government was concerned. It came out just in November and said, we get 82% of our oil from the Persian Gulf. 82%. We hold on land around about 20 to 30 days reserves. We have enough oil tankers coming in to get us 44 days of oil reserve. I was going to fly to New Zealand, so I got my dates out just to check up that I was going to get home on time. But it worked out, it looked all right. Yes, Australia was concerned. They were concerned because, yes, Iran has been developing missiles. Look, that's an old article. For a long time she has been developing them. Her prime aim is Israel. And so, the end result was she threatened to close the Straits of Bab el-Mandeb and the Straits of Hormuz. Iran claimed she could block those waterways, out of which 40% of the oil tankers of the world come out. 25% of the world's oil comes out of that area. It would have huge consequences. Now, Brother Thomas spoke about that. He spoke about it in the Old Herald, and he also wrote it in the Opus Israel, Exposition of Daniel, and Eureka. You want to have a read of them? I'll leave it up there for just a second, those quotes. But he spoke about the fact, and he gives quite lengthy details in some of the articles in regard to why he says so. But he says, Britain and its young lion shall take maritime possession of the Persian Gulf. He couldn't understand why. In his day, the only thing that seemed to come out of the Persian Gulf was camels. Nobody knew about oil. He was in sailing ship days. But he said the Bible said so. And he said, yes, the Straits of Bab el-Mandeb and the Red Sea to Suez, they will attempt to close. Now, why is that so serious to Europe? Well, there's that area. Russia threatens Europe's oil supplies. First of all, Trump said, I will boycott Iran. Iran said, we will sea mine. They're ancient pictures of mines, but they've got much more modern, up-to-date mines. We will mine those waterways. But further to that, this area is controlled by Russia, Syria. And when Russia took Syria in 2015, the newspaper said, yes, they're coming to help the Syrians. Yes, that's what they say. But one of the main reasons they want is to control the pipelines bringing oil from Kuwait and Iraq that go into the Mediterranean. They will be able to switch that off if they want to, when the time is ready. As soon as Iran threatened to close this, Russia brought into that area 33 naval vessels. 33 naval vessels. And then said, no oil tanker, no ship will go into Syria unless we agree, unless we approve. So in other words, if we look at this map here, they can cut off the oil coming out of there. Sure, they've also cut off the oil coming out of the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea using Iran. But as well as that, remember last year they took Libya. Since taking Libya, brothers and sisters, just in the last couple of months they have brought into that area of Libya S-300 missiles, which they say they can use against ships coming from Libya. Libya provides about 150,000 barrels of oil, I think it's a week, going into Europe. That can be cut off by Russia. That can be cut off by Russia. And the last of the four sources of oil for Europe is there. NATO. And so consequently the oil coming from there, coming from, I said NATO, Norway I should have said, coming out of Norway to Europe. Large quantities come from out of the North Sea. They control half of the North Sea and that oil goes into Europe. And so little wonder the headlines in Britain were this. World War III figures as NATO sends 50,000 troops against Russia. So there, come back to Europe again. There it is, as the years have rolled by, and now the threat to cut off all Europe's oil is implied in what's going on. But Russia hasn't stopped there. This year, late last year, 2018 and 19, Russia and Ukraine face off as the EU pleads for calm. What did they do? Well, you see, NATO and Ukraine is here, right through to here. Their ships travelled through that waterway, and they closed it off. That waterway, they had built a bridge, there it is. And then they put an oil tanker sideways in there and blocked all ships from Ukraine to Ukraine, hemorrhaging their activity, their industry and such like. A carefully arranged provocation to Iran, warning them. And so, the Sydney Morning Herald said late last year, Russia and Ukraine face off as the EU pleads for calm. And Russian jets, fighters, moved to annex the Ukrainian region. They moved into that area, 80,000 troops into Crimea, 1,400 artillery, 900 tanks, 2,300 armoured combat vehicles. They're there now. The situation is serious. The leader of Ukraine says Putin threatens NATO's eastern borders. The whole system of the European security is threatened with it. All of Europe is threatened, he said. It's not just us. Oh yes, since they started fighting, Russia fighting with Ukraine, back in about 2014, 11,000 have died. 1.5 million of our people have been displaced. It's shocking what's going on. But, he says, they're there in big numbers now, and the threat is not just to us, all Europe. And so, here we are just a few days ago. Is that friendly face again. Ukraine could cease to exist. Russia's top security official has warned. Okay. The most dangerous direct clash in years has taken place. And he goes on to say, expect worse. Expect fears of invasion. So you can see things rolling by, brethren and sisters. Now let's come back to our map. So yes, the oil could be cut up, but now Ukraine has been threatened. And things in Europe are not staying stable either. Now come over to the western side a little. Macron and the French centralists don't have any answers. What to? The yellow shirts. These people are protesting over the rulership of France, but it hasn't stopped there. These people are spreading. Look at the date. Belgium, Croatia, Ireland, Netherlands, spreading right across Europe, destabilising Europe. Incredible the situation that's going on. Europe is in a horrible mess. And of course, it's not going to be helped by Britain breaking away from Europe. We know that's going to happen. The merchants of Tarshish, Britain with all the young lions will go their own way, won't they? They will challenge Russia and Britain when they come into the Middle East. But as far as Britain is concerned, the divided UK searches for a Brexit plan. They want to leave Europe. The result will be quite serious for Europe. We'll have a little bit more to talk about that later on. So what's the options? Well, they've taken votes just the last few days, and the main aim is we're to leave. We're to leave. But how? We don't know. Well, brothers and sisters, one thing for sure, they will leave. They will leave. We know that from Scripture. Here's a cartoon that was written many months ago. There's the EU, there's Mrs. Merkel, there's Greece looking very sick. The EU is in a mess. Europe is in a real mess. And sailing off into the distance is Britain, wisely moving away. And so coming back to our map, there it is, and Brexit's going to take place. The support for Britain is pulling away. That was economic support, but also backbone. We'll pick that up in a minute. Well, the threat of Russian military weapons is where we want to go now. What's going on? Come back to this area here, which we talked about before, Kaliningrad. There's Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. We looked at it before. This is being armed, hugely armed. Next war, growing danger of a great power conflict, region where Russia could penetrate. So from those missiles, they could get the shorter range ones to Poland, the big ones right over Europe. And what are they arming themselves with? What are they terrorising Europe with? New Russian missiles undermines Europe's security. Russia's actions undermine the deal, the treaty they struck with Britain, America, because they're building up their weapons hugely at that time. Russian cruise missiles, here's a few. And here's again the area they could hit. Look at this. Here's a missile. They've got these apparently in Kaliningrad. This one's a big one. It's capable of having 12 warheads on it. Those warheads are not A-bombs. Remember, they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. If they dropped the bomb on Adelaide, your building here, your hall here would probably still be standing, an A-bomb. But if they dropped an H-bomb, which is 3,000 times more powerful, and this has got 12 of them, 12 warheads in it, it would probably damage Victor Harbour if the hills weren't in the way. Think of it. And this missile, capable of going for 11,000 kilometres, ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. This friendly man has phoned up Mr. Macron and said, if I use one against you, we can wipe out the whole of France with one missile. He phoned up Trump and said we can take out the whole of Texas with one missile. So you see, things are really fearful for Europe. Putin then says, we've now got hypersonic missile system that do 20 times the speed of sound. What they're saying is really a missile that goes into orbit, and as it comes in, gravity will bring it in around about 14,000 kph maximum. Any higher, they bring it in steeper, it burns up. Russia says we've got them. You can't hit them. We can hit you. We can put missile, nuclear warheads in the head of it. You haven't got an answer. So, what's America doing? Trump came along, looked at the date. He said, I'll give you 60 days to get your missiles out of Europe. You're breaking the INF deal. You're breaking a deal that was struck some years ago. We call on Russia to return urgently to full and verifiable compliance on the missile deal. So he gave them about 2 months. It's nearly up. It's nearly up. Has Russia been pulling them out? No way. No way. What was Russia's response? Trump said, pull them out. Trump's response, here's a London paper. Putin warns the US withdraw from the nuclear treaty, because that's what they're threatening to do. If Russia doesn't pull its weapons out, as it should do. They warn the US pull out from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Force Treaty, the INF, could ruin global security. Oh, it's ruined already. Ruined already. Putin said the US withdrawal from that treaty will noticeably weaken regional and global security worldwide. That's our point. So where's things going to now, brothers and sisters? What's the answer? Trump says, looking at it, NATO's not working. It's not keeping Russia in bay. NATO said, Trump says NATO is obsolete. UN is a political game. So what he is pointing out is that NATO is not keeping Russia at bay. So that means we are giving them military protection, and as well as that, they're not spending any money to do anything about it. Remember, he came right on his first foreign visit to Europe and he said, you've got to spend more. We spend 7%. You've got to at least spend 2% to protect yourself and to intimidate Russia. You've got to do something. Just can't stand there and do nothing. And so, he's now gone one step further. He's apparently been repeatedly saying, we're withdrawing from the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation. Oh yes, that would be great for Russia. Europe would be left with its own forces to defend Europe, which would go nowhere. So President Donald Trump has reportedly suggested on multiple occasions that the United States withdraw from NATO. No other way, he says, we've got to go, because you're not doing enough. So come back to our map. There we are, brothers and sisters. There's Russia bearing down on Europe in many different ways. Last, US talks of leaving NATO. Well, brothers and sisters, what's Europe's response? What are they going to do? Can they rely on America? Probably not. Anyhow, what can America do against missiles and atom bombs and hydrogen bombs? So what's Europe's response? Again, we've got the twin press there, I don't know why. Europe's response? Yes. Form a large European army. That's what we should do. May soon capitulate to Russia, forming a new alliance. So now they are arming, at long last. They are trying to develop something. 25 EU nations officially launched an EU military pact. A fully fledged European army is what they're developing. Yes, it's going to be a mega army. Give it 10 years. 23 EU countries, including Germany, France, have agreed to integrate their forces. Combined armed forces were first proposed 70 years ago. Yes, that's NATO. But it's not enough. So there they are today. Oh yes, they're united in trying to do something about it. But look what the papers are saying. The European army would be a total disaster. So who would make the decision to commit a European army to war? If it's the EU, would it be it would have to be a unanimous decision by all of the EU nations. Norway and Greece might have different ideas. I'd rather fight a coalition than be a part of one, said Napoleon. An alliance is only as strong as the weakest link. So you see, when they come to decision together, we'll fight Russia, or will they? Ask this man, the new leader of Italy. He said in his opening speech, my sympathy is with Russia. I advocate opening towards Russia. I want to join up with them and be friendly with them. I can see the writing on the wall. And this appears to be what this lady is now saying. Germany and Russia are getting closer. Here's why. But it's true that Russia is recovering from its isolation and that its relationship with Germany is probably the best one it has inside NATO. National Interest newspaper last year. So you can see things are moving. And what about Russia? Where's Russia going? What's it doing? Well, just one little thing aside for a moment. Economically, it's moving. Mystery as Russia liquidated almost all of its holdings in the US Treasury. By halfway through last year, it had pulled out 82% of its funds out of America, and the rest has come out. No good if you're going to go to war to have your money in the opposition, they pulled it out. And so here we can see the military forces of Russia threatening Europe. Yes, Europe has got some forces, but Russia is threatening nuclear attack and intimidating the whole of Europe. They've got, as Wikipedia says, over 3 million troops. There's the threat to Europe. Now, I want to come aside for a second, brothers and sisters, and take you back to the Second World War. I'd like you to think of these people: Hitler, Germany, and Churchill. What was going to be the answer? Face invasion or capitulate? Well, the situation was this, brothers and sisters. As that force moved in through there, Europe gave up. Already, before they moved, before Germany moved its tanks, not nuclear weapons, tanks, into that area, Czechoslovakia and Austria had been annexed, just given up. The German troops came into Austria by train. Didn't have to march, didn't have to have their soldiers, their armaments there particularly. They'd just given up. Same with Czechoslovakia. Poland was occupied in 10 days. Denmark in 6 hours. Norway was the best, 5 weeks. Belgium, Netherlands and France, what was depicted in the arrow there, fell in 6 weeks, brothers and sisters. What did they face? Tanks only. Soldiers. They capitulated. So what was to happen to Britain? Well, Britain, over in Britain, this man had just been made Prime Minister. Been Prime Minister only for 3 weeks. And he brought together the cabinet. The inner cabinet, there they are in that picture on the left. And he asked them what they were going to do. And they said, we've lost so many men in World War I. We don't want to fight again. I read for you what Boris Johnson said in his book on Churchill. It had been Prime Minister for less than 3 weeks. And the question before the Cabinet was very simple. Should Britain fight? It was a stalemate. And Churchill played his masterstroke. He then convened the 25 ministers from every department. So he got the bigger Cabinet together, so to speak, and said, I am convinced that every one of you would rise up and tear me down from my place if I for one moment would contemplate parley or surrender. Between that 2 times, between those 2 meetings, apparently he went out on a train, met the people, said he'd never been on a train before, always been chauffeur driven. Anyhow, we went on the train and spoke to the more humble people. He said, would we fight? They said, yes. And he came back robust. We'll fight on the beaches, we'll fight on the mountains, we'll stand, we'll oppose the German forces. And he flew across to France twice, maybe even 3 times, and tried to strengthen their backbone in those weeks when Germany was coming down. They wouldn't. They wouldn't. They gave up. And they capitulated. The whole of Europe didn't have the backbone to fight. Look at it now. Look at it now. It's threatened with nuclear weapons now, not tanks and field guns. Nuclear weapons. Remember an H-bomb? Look at the power of it. Would you fight? So papers are coming out like this. I put the writing at the bottom. That's not out of the article. Usually, almost always, it is out of the article when I put it up there. The UN General Assembly in New York turned into a show of EU solidarity with Russia and China against USA. So there we've got all the components of Ezekiel 38 pretty well, haven't we? That oppose Britain in the Middle East. Rosh, Mako, Togarmah, Gomer. Well, brothers and sisters, how long have we got? How long before Europe capitulates? Will it need to be invaded? Brother Thomas thought so, but in his day that was the only way it could have been done. Today, it looks like World War II all over again. Faced with this threat, and it would appear to me that any moment they could capitulate. And if they capitulated, probably they had the answer to Brexit too. Britain would be cut off. Not cutting off Europe, but could even be cut off by Europe. So, brothers and sisters, come back to where we were before. Daniel chapter 2 continues. Thou sawest, that's after that image stood, thou sawest till a stone was cut out of the mountains without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, break them to pieces together. So there it is, brothers and sisters. The image stands. What's the next thing? That's critical for all of us. The stone. The stone hits that image. There's Armageddon. That's the Lord Jesus Christ we paid with ourselves. So you see, as that image stands, the next thing we should be expecting is to be assembled society. How long can it be? We don't know, brothers and sisters. It could be years. But it does look at the moment that Europe is utter terror. And the next step in Daniel, as we said before, is, yes, the stone that cut out without hands smote that image. Of course, we know what that speaks to us of. The great battle of Armageddon. So ask yourselves, brothers and sisters, how long have we got? We don't know. But look, let's be very serious about the things of the truth. We know what's going to happen. Into that Middle East shall come that Gog confederacy. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. Into that area it will come. But these shall escape out of his hand. Even Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. Yes, into that area will come the Tarshish power, the British power. And they will oppose Russia when he comes into the Middle East. But again, look at this quote from the Olivet Prophecy. And there shall be upon the earth distress of nations. Ask yourself, what's the feeling in Europe at the moment? Threatened with nuclear weapons that could wipe out a country, not just a city, a country. There shall be upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. No way out. Means hearts failing them for fear. Fear. And for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. What's Europe going to do? Is it going to do the same as World War II? Capitulate in a moment? Well, what we know, though, is when these things begin to come to pass. Then, brothers and sisters, look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. So the time is very short indeed. Remember where we started? This time in Matthew chapter 25 instead of chapter 24. And it reads there that the Lord calls on us to be wise, faithful virgins who use our lamps to watch. Yes, brethren, we've got to be students of God's Word. And not only students of God's Word, students of prophecy. So we can watch the signs. We can be stirred up. We don't compromise with the world. We are determined to walk that straight and narrow way and not deviate to the left hand nor to the right. The wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps and were, as verse 13 says, able to watch therefore, to be stirred up, to be encouraged in their walk, and then encouraged to use their talents in their walk toward the kingdom of God. Verse 15 tells us, and unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, and to every man according to his several abilities. Straightway he took his journey. We've got to use our talents, brothers and sisters, in our service to God, in our service in the truth. And what is that? The last section of Matthew chapter 25, the Lord tells us we've got to care for our brothers and sisters. So when Christ came, he said to them, in verse 50, he said, and the king shall answer and say unto them, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you've done it to me. Oh, what a thrilling thing that will be, brethren and sisters. What a thrilling thing that will be for us. If at that time the Lord Jesus Christ turns to us and he said, yes, you've done it to me. You've shown care. You've shown wonderful care, service towards me, because you've done it to others. Well, brothers and sisters, the days are indeed very short. We don't know how long we've got, but at the moment it looks grim as far as Europe is concerned. The Revelation closes with these words, surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so come Lord Jesus. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen.